Welcome to episode 68, Precoming. You know, if you didn't turn on closed captioning, you won't even know what you're missing. Anyhow, I'll explain and tell you that a title consideration for the last episode was Regret Carefully. Because if you view my development in that last episode, you see how I progressed from being so regretful that I'd messed up some people's vibe to feeling that my feelings of regret may have been misplaced. There are things in your life you may always regret, but think of those things in your past that you come to regret perhaps immediately they occur or perhaps quite some time later. But then even later or upon further review you could say you no longer feel regret but give thanks. So, despite the many evidence for our regrets, man, I give thanks for those unwitting escapes where what I once regretted turned into a good outcome for me in the end. So recently, I was reading the New York Times story of Thomas Lane's 2.5-year sentence in his second case, and I thought what happened to him was so unfair. These days, social commentary is politics, a topic I generally avoid, as my blog followers know. Internal joke. Avoid or only avoid directly. But I'll explain why I thought what happened to Thomas Lane was unfair and really unjust under my philosophy of life. You see, as a former student of an academy, I recognize that as a junior officer at the scene, there was not much he could have done in that situation against the directions of a senior officer unless he thought the senior officer was killing the detainee. And don't be ridiculous. Hurting him, maybe, but killing him? In the mind of Lane, a rookie on his 4th day on the job, this could not be anything more than him helping or assisting a senior, veteran, and accomplished officer with a detainee. If you cannot acknowledge that a 4-day-old cop could view the person being arrested as a detainee and not at that stage a victim, then there is no need for you to continue listening and reading this episode since I don't argue politics. Lane pled guilty in his first case and was convicted in the second and has a third to go. He may well take a plea or be convicted in a third case, but I could also see him being acquitted by a jury made up of people familiar with the rigidness of organizations that have strict chain of command structures. Internal joke. Leave the jury picking and lawyering to the lawyers, please. I know I should leave the lawyering to the lawyers, but I feel I could make some people, or a jury, regret at least the amount of disgust they may have initially felt for the junior officers at the scene. Internal joke. What quantity is at least the amount? But if you make people empathize with what it entails and means for a junior officer to contravene a senior officer and make them ask themselves whether they really believe any of the junior officers were thinking at the time that the senior officer was actually killing the detainee, you might get an acquittal. Could those junior officers really have thought at the time that they were witnessing a murder? If you take away the politics, people familiar with or knowledgeable about strict chain of command structures, those people especially would understand and acquit with respect to the most serious of charges, as would those people who have been positively affected by the police. And I think, given the circumstances of his case, even with a conviction, a probationary sentence would be more just. To me, given human nature, law enforcement is still a necessary but also noble profession when conducted by people with integrity and empathy. So, going back to the last episode, internal joke. Yes, Uncle Tom? I think of how great Thomas Lane may have felt those 4 days when he fulfilled a dream, and I sincerely hope that his life is such that one day he ceases to regret his decision to become a police officer. And as this sad episode of a blog happily jerks to an ending, you might consider or might wonder about the title. Well, it's all about the next episode that's to come.